Hi, my name is Guido Potesta. I'm going to be showing you how to build a tower and what you would need a tower for. So what you need a tower for is for things like gaming, or if you're running a server unit, or if you honestly just want a higher performance computer. They're considered to be high performance computers because you can upgrade them, and also because inside of computer laptops, compared to computers like laptops, they're considered to be a lot faster, sometimes up to 20-fold times faster. I'm just going to give you a brief overview on how to build the computer now. This doesn't include installing an operating system, so for those of you who are wondering, this isn't all the steps. This is just a very brief overview on what you'll need to get started on your build. So this is the physical aspect of it, and the diagnostics in case your CPU or in case your personal computer decides to fail when posting. All right, so to get started, you're going to need a CPU, which looks something like this. This is an AMD CPU, and it has thermal paste applied to it already, so don't mind the little blob there. What this does is it processes all the information that your computer gets, basically. So without this, you have no computer. This is a central processing unit, so this is the heart of your computer, quite literally. So what you're going to do is you're going to install your CPU in your motherboard, but first you need to look for the triangle or indicator on your motherboard depicting what the orientation of your CPU is. So in my case, the orientation of my CPU would be like this. You would also need to line up on AMD CPUs. This little notch here with the notch on the motherboard. I don't know if you can see that. That's the best I can do. Very sorry. So you're going to place your CPU like this with the notch lined up into your motherboard. And if you seated it correctly, there should be no gaps, and you will be able to close the arm completely. Once you hear that snap into place, it's not going anywhere, you're good. Now I should note, the next step it does require a bracket in the back of your motherboard, which I unfortunately do not have, but I will demonstrate how to install the radiator anyways. So next, as stated, I will put in the radiator, which looks something similar to this. It normally has 6 heat pipes if you're using a normal radiator. Sometimes they can be bigger, sometimes they can be smaller, or they can even be liquid cooled, which has 2 tubes, one for pumping in liquid, one for pumping out liquid. And what it does is it uses 2 fans to regulate the liquid's temperature. So to install this, you would need, as said earlier, a bracket that goes on the back of the motherboard, and then a compatible chassis, which goes on top of your CPU. Do note that some manufacturers send these with plastic on top, so you'll need to peel that off, and you will need to also apply thermal paste prior to installation of this device. So I'm going to install it now. And there is normally an orientation. Consult with your handbook if you were given one. And there you go. Just like that, set on top of the CPU is your chassis. But since mine is not screwed in, it would be dangerous for me to just leave it like this, since it can cause further damage to the board. This is a dead board, so it will not be able to post anyways, but I can still salvage it with some soldering. So I'm going to move this very carefully. With AMD CPUs, if you do decide to remove your chassis, don't be afraid, as sometimes the CPU will lift up because of the thermal paste. The reason this is because the thermal paste is supposed to create almost like a vacuum tight seal between the CPU and a heatsink. Alrighty, so moving on to the next step, installing your RAM sticks. So your RAM sticks normally have a certain orientation to them. In this case, mine would be the shortest side towards the back of the board, which is upward. So you would face it like this, press down, open the latches first, I'm very sorry. Open the latches first, and you're gonna firmly press down on one of them. And if they're not placing correctly, then what will happen is they will not go in correctly. In my case, that is what happened. So again, you're going to want to line up the notches correctly. Normally one side is smaller than the other. That's how you can distinguish whether the orientation is correct. And then you're going to firmly place it into its socket. like so. And then you're going to press down until you hear both clicks. Same thing applies with your other RAM stick if you have a 2 by a certain amount of gigs set. If you have a dual channel memory set, then it will come with 2. If you have a 4 channel memory set, it will come with 4. And there's even such thing as single memory sets. So double check with your distributor in case you do decide to go with those. They all work the same way. You can use one stick from a 4 channel setup or one stick from a 2 channel setup. It does not matter, so long as you have at least one RAM stick configured in your system, you will be fine. So next, you want to place your motherboard inside your tower case. If you do not have a case, that is perfectly fine. You can open bench it, which means that you will just not have a case, and it will be running like this other computer that I have here on my setup, just completely without a case. It's just down there. All right. So if you don't have a case, for those users, you're almost done. It's almost done, hooray. You're going to place in your graphics processing unit next. That goes into normally a PCIe X16 express lane. And there's also PCIe 1, and there's maybe a few other PCIe lanes. Those ones are unimportant if you do not have something that goes inside of them. If you do have something that goes inside of them, consult with your warranty and your manufacturer, so that way you know exactly where to put them. So I'm going to install the graphics processing unit now, and the only way that you can tell that they go on right is by lining up these notches. Again, so you're going to place it into the slot, and then once it is all lined up, you're going to press it down until you hear the click. And just like that, your graphics processing unit is ready to go. If you've done all the following steps, then you are just about done. There is one last step, and that is connecting the 24 pin as well as installing the SSD. Installing the SSD should normally come before you place the motherboard into the case, so that way it's easier to route. But if you have an NVMe SSD like this one here, this is inside of an enclosure, so it doesn't count, then you would place it onto your NVMe Express lanes on your motherboard. Double check with your manufacturer to see where those those will be, and then you will place your 24 pin into these 2 sockets. One of them is 24 pins, one of them is 8 pins. Of course, motherboards can have a 16 pin layout for the CPU, or a single 8 pin layout for the CPU. Okay, so you're going to plug in your power supply into here, and then into here as well. I'm sorry, I'm checking the time. And then you're going to place your NVMe SSD. In my case, it would be underneath the GPU. So it would look something like this right here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's this one right here. And just like that, you are just about done with your build. All you need to do now is plug in any additional components onto the board here, like SPDIF audio or SPDIF audio, I don't know exactly what it's called. And then there's also your USB ports, and then your I/O. Without these, you will not be able to access the features that your case provides. And with all that being said, you are now done with your build. To install Windows, I recommend looking on YouTube, since I cannot explain it over this video since it is a live audience. But in case you have any further questions, feel free to ask me on Discord or through my personal email through school. Thank you very much for watching, and that ends this video.